The top portion of the protocol up here shows a title, a subtitle, and help text. These are the global properties, and they define what is shown on this landing screen when you first get into TabSINT. You see that the key, title, and its value simple protocol render here, and then the subtitle is shown below, protocol development workshop. And the help text, default help text on each page, is visible when you use this help button. And this help text and the protocol title will be inherited by each of the pages in this protocol unless they are explicitly written differently on that page.
Just one thing to note, if you see in the middle of the page it says show debug info, that's only available when you have the admin mode checkbox selected. So since we've selected that previously, you'll see that. And if you click on show debug info here, this will just show you some of the information in the underlying data object. So you can actually open up the page and look at the protocol text that you wrote loaded into TabSINT. So if something isn't working as you're developing a protocol, this debug info can be really useful to figure out, okay, what is actually in TabSINT right now. But generally speaking, admin mode should always be turned off in production. Shouldn't be something that's ever used once the tablet is outside of development.
So when we hit begin, we're going to go to the first page in this protocol. I'm going to close this. I'm going to close the debug mode or debug info. So when you look over here on the left at my JSON file, you see that the title is page 1, and that title is rendered up here in the top left corner. The page title is always shown up here. The question main text is defined to be information, and that is shown in the big blue text, followed by the subtext in italics. And the instruction text is shown below that. They will always show in that order: main text, subtext, and then instruction text. If one of those is not defined, it won't be rendered and will be skipped. On this page, I set the help text to say use the continue button to continue. So you see that if you click on this help text, we now have different help info than we did on the global protocol level. I've also set the key submit text to be continue. So to follow to the following page, you would use this continue button. I've also used an image, which is one of the things that you can put on a protocol page. Remember, you can have a text, you can have image, audio, a video, as well as the user input. This page doesn't have a user input, it just has the text and the info. So if we continue on to page 2, we have the same key as title, which is defined to be page 2. So that title is again shown in the upper left corner. You'll see that it also has the key ID shown in the double quotes. Each page must have an ID. That is the one piece of information that is required for each page within a protocol. This page has the question main text and a subtext, but it doesn't have the instruction text, so that isn't rendered. I've also shown one of the available user input areas. This one is defined as a type integer response area. It prompts the user to enter any integer. I've also shown that one of the options available within any user input is this enable skip key. When that is set to true, it renders this blue skip button on the bottom of the screen that allows the user to continue within the protocol without entering a response. Otherwise, this submit button isn't active until the user enters a value. You'll notice that the enable skip key is shown within the response area object. That's because the skip applies to the response input. It doesn't apply to the entire page. Also on this page, since help text is not defined, when you use the help button, you see the default help text that was inherited from the global protocol level. Also, since we don't change the submit text, the submit button says submit again instead of continue. So if we enter an integer and we continue on to the next page, this is the third page. Again, it has the required key ID. It does not have title defined, so the title in the top left corner, the title of that page is inherited as the protocol level simple protocol. This page doesn't have a main text or an instruction text, so the subtext shown in italics is the only text written at the top of the page. And this response area shown is defined as a type multiple choice response area. And if you look over here on the left, you can define the number of choices that you want the user to be able to see, as well as the text to be shown on each button. Each choice must have an ID, but the text key is not required. When the text key is given, that value replaces the value shown to the user on the button. So you'll notice that choices 1, 2, and 4 have text, but choice 3 doesn't. So the ID, the value shown on the button is defaulted to be the ID. And this page also shows an example of a very simple logic. It uses this follow-on that says if the user answers choice 1, then show this following page. However, if the user chooses 2, 3, or 4, this page is not shown and the protocol ends, since page 3 is the last page in the protocol.
This gets into some of the more advanced features of protocols. We just wanted to show one very simple example. We're not expecting necessarily to get into the logic part of protocols right now, but for those interested, that's a direction we can take our next session.
The final thing that I wanted to point out with this very simple protocol example is that the follow-on, the logic is attached to the TabSINT page. It's not within the response area object. It's on the page, so that when TabSINT gets the input from the response area, it then goes into the logic. And then, so once we make our selection, we get our follow-on page, and then the protocol ends. So now if I was to navigate back to the admin view and into the results tab, you see this is the result from the protocol that we just finished.